Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Western Spirit. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Jonny Gould. Jonny is a seasoned British broadcaster and journalist. Jonny has been at the forefront of tackling some of the most pressing issues in his country, in the UK, from the rise of anti Semitism in the UK to the shifting political and cultural dynamics in Europe and at large. And we're going to ask him all about that. And like I said, with his sharp insights and unflinching perspective, I wrote a very nice thing about you, Jonny. So Jonny is someone who I think is it's good to talk to you here from Israel, and it's an honor actually to get your opinions about everything, and I'm honored to speak to you. So welcome to the show.
Ariel, it's an absolute honor to talk to you in Israel here from London, England. I got a shot in the arm with my last interviewee, a guy called Dan Diker, the chief exec of the Jerusalem Center, who said how important London remains as a diplomatic and political center. We are suffering a little bit with confidence here because I think, frankly, this Labour government has changed so much, but there's been so much resistance to that change that maybe, just maybe, they won't be so tin-eared in the future. And it was great to hear from Dan Diker that around the world, London is still seen as a fine diplomatic center. But you know what? Jerusalem is probably a bit more important these days, right?
We'll see. We'll see. Well, we know the prime minister is supposedly flying to meet the new president of the United States. He might be the first foreign leader to meet him in Washington since his inauguration. So I guess that means something. So we'll see if that's going to happen. That's the rumor today. Um, I want to ask you something that it has to do with Israel, but it has to do more about the UK standing in the West and in the world. So we've seen Donald Trump ascend in America. In Europe, we've seen a rightward shift all throughout the continent. The only place where you could really say move to the left, at least in the last time there was a referendum, an election, is the UK when the Labour government won. So obviously, when I spoke to people like Matt Goodwin a little bit before the election, their contention is it's because the Conservatives governed like the Labour Party as a weaker part of a weaker Labour Party. So people went with the original thing and or stayed at home, which I guess is true also. But how do you maybe explain it a little more? Give us a little bit about how it feels to be in England now.
Well, let's try and tackle how the elections were won and lost over the last two. And this might go away to explaining why we had two extraordinarily diverse election results. We've had a huge landslide for Labour in 2024, and we had a huge landslide for the Conservatives in 2019. When Boris Johnson won with 83 seats, he beat Jeremy Corbyn because British people, as Lord Ian Austin tried to explain to me and the world, he said, the British people, they don't really know the ins and outs of Israel or anti-Semitism, but with Corbyn, they knew something was wrong. And they came out in their millions in traditional heartlands where Labour always won and voted Conservative. And it was tied in with getting Brexit done, which is what Boris Johnson promised to do. Not sure that Boris Johnson's getting it done and getting it over the line has actually produced something which is definitive in terms of implementing it, but that's another discussion. So what we call the Red Wall, which were constituencies of the Midlands and the north of England, effectively lent their Labour-leaning votes to the Conservatives. And this time round, because of the chaos in the Tory party, Boris Johnson lost his premiership, Liz Truss lasted shortly more than 40 days, and then Rishi Sunak did his best to stabilise things and actually did quite a good job with a very, very bad hand, but inevitably was going to lose, and lose he did to a landslide. And what we saw was a return of the Red Wall to traditional Labour. However, coming over the hill is another potential change of political landscape. And we'd say probably it's the first time this could happen in over 100 years. And I'm talking, of course, about the Reform Party. Now, the Reform Party, you can see their stated aim is to really crush the Conservative Party. We saw a poll for the first time ever. Reform is in the lead
Yes.
over the Tories and Labour. Okay, it's a poll, and the only poll that matters is the one on election day. However, they've never led a poll before. Can they win the next election? I don't think so, but they might be able to win the one after that. And I'll tell you why. They came second in 89 seats in the 2024 election. Now, that's not enough. But if they can swing it a little bit more, then they might be able to come second. And if they come second, then people will start believing that they are a potent political power. One thing the Tories and the Labour have over Reform is bricks and mortar. They have local clubs. They have local associations. They decide who the MP is. Reform don't have that, and they have to go about literally building bricks and mortar clubs and places where Reform people can come and meet and decide who their MP, prospective parliamentary candidate, should be. That is work in progress. The other thing that doesn't favour them as yet is our two-party system, first past the post. And that is approximately why the Liberal Democrats, who also got 4 million votes at the last election, got 80 seats and the Reform got 5. Okay, so if there was proportional representation, then the Lib Dems might have helped form a centre-right government, actually, and may not have won. So we are in an extraordinary position, what I call a loveless landslide. If you look at the amount of votes that are actually scaled to Keir Starmer, he got less votes than Corbyn. And Boris Johnson still won by a landslide. So this government has a mandate, but it's not a popular one. So that's why they've made such a bad start.
Right.
So in a nutshell, has explained the crazy world of changing British politics.
But Johnny, just to it's a very weird thing because everybody used to make fun of America that their electoral college system was very weird, and then after the election in the UK, I suddenly realized that the landslide, like you said, wasn't really a landslide in terms of actual votes, and it was a landslide in terms of seats and the way they're allocated, but not in terms of votes, and also the discrepancy between parties that got basically the same amount of votes. One party, like you said, gets 40 plus seats. The other one gets 10, 5, something like that. Is that a discussion in the UK of the need, or are people talking about the need to do reforms to their election system?
I think as long as Labour and Conservative are at the top of the polls, there won't be a reform of the voting system. When Nick Clegg became Deputy Prime Minister under David Cameron's leadership in 2010, they made, as part of the coalition agreement, a thing called AV, Alternative Vote, as part of a referendum. And basically it was trounced. It was part of the deal. Lib Dem said, we want it, because obviously they knew that actually they could be a stakeholder in all future governments. And indeed, Ed Davey did have an enormously successful election campaign. Who knows why? But I mean, I think basically because of what Matt Goodwin has told you about the Uni Party, the dissatisfaction. Those people who didn't want to vote Reform would vote Lib Dem, not for any particular reason of love, but they just weren't the Labour or Tory. So no, I don't think we will have a reform with a small r of our electoral system, because once the Reform Party become an establishment party, they won't want it either. Simple as that.
Yes, the people at the top usually don't want to change the rules that got them to the top. I want to ask you. This is a question that maybe we'll get back to in a different way in the end of our conversation, but just the fact that there was a significant number of seats, not one or two, I think, that were won by people who their only issue was Gaza, right? There's, I think, how many? 5, 6 seats, maybe?
5, yeah.
5 seats of people who went to their constituents and said, we have no we're not giving you any promises on any domestic issues, not the economy, not the price of living, not your healthcare system. That's a lot of complaints about it. Nothing. Not so. The only thing we're promising you is that we will fight Israel with in regards to Gaza in the parliament. That's basically it, right?
That is exactly right. And there's a sixth MP who is not part of what they call the Independent Alliance, led by Jeremy Corbyn. And her name is Sultana, and she's the MP in Coventry. And for some reason, she has maintained the Labour whip as opposed to joining her crew, who are much more her political allies. So there they are, flashing out press releases all the time, questioning Keir Starmer about Gaza, about the G word. And I don't mean Gaza, I mean the other word that I will not utter in relation to a war which Hamas started and Israel's military response. And yeah, they don't seem to concern themselves overmuch with their
Anything.
concerns over their constituents. Furthermore, what I'm concerned about is in the north of England, there doesn't seem to be much of a concern which party they join, the Tories or the Labour, because if it really is a uni-party, then it depends on where the ideology sits, and the ideology sits for that community, the Islamist community, in both parties. So
Yeah.
I think they're trying to disrupt our democracy, and I think we really need to detoxify the discussion like, you're a racist for saying that,
Yes.
because if look, we're Jewish people, so we understand the need to maintain our identity, to pass on to our children our prayers, our beliefs, our traditions. And in the West, Christian people, millions of Christian people are saying, well, I'm not Christian anymore. And I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that. They're trying to believe in a post-Christian environment, in which case, why do they celebrate Christmas? I mean, Christmas is their religious festival in a sense that I'm happy to wish my neighbors Merry Christmas, and I'm happy to get Merry Christmas back. It's fine. I'm not going to church at midnight on the 24th, but they might. Or they might have Christmas lunch with their family. And that's great because they are Christian. They should hold on to their values. And our values in Britain are a kind of merger, an evolution of church and state.
Yeah.
It's the national religion. And to be honest, as a Jewish person who loves the consensus of this country, I don't mind. I'm very happy for people to be Christians. They are ideological allies of the Jewish people if they apply their values correctly and traditionally.
Yes.
And we still have enough Christmas about December for people not to forget who they are.
Yes, and I'll just say one thing that I find interesting. Maybe as you're talking, I was thinking I was going to ask you about it. So, one of the things that we've had a number of shows about on Europe is the fact that number one, in almost all of in all of European countries, the number of children has been just going. No one has kids anymore in Europe, and the second thing is that the church attendance is like zero among young people, like you just said. And I think those two things go together. There's no more a sense of belonging to your people, to your country, to your faith. It's a sort of atomization of society, which makes it even worse because people need a sense of belonging. And then they go to these protests, for example. They feel suddenly they have an objective, they have a meaning to life, which is a disgusting meaning, but they have something. Do you see that in the UK where people are like, they lost all connection with their surroundings? They feel a need to some connection, and they're being used by bad actors.
100%. I mean, and also there's perhaps a slightly more positive thing, which is that football fans are
Yes.
around their football clubs in a much more pseudo-religious way than they used to be, much more tribal. But football can be shunted around with ideological talk. I mean, we had Black Lives Matter all over the Premier League during the lockdown. And only this weekend, Barnet Football Club, which is situated in Stanmore, which is a traditionally Jewish area, was going to have a bucket collection for Amnesty International. And both me and I think maybe a few hundred others campaigned to stop it because it would have caused terrible division and terrible anxiety. And frankly, as I said to Barnet on Twitter, it would stain their football club forever.
Yeah.
Because we would say, oh yeah, Barnet, who did an amnesty collection. But you know what? Common sense prevailed and they stood down the bucket collection. And so common sense won the day. And as a victim of identity politics in football, I had to resign as the supporters trust director at Aston Villa, my football club, because my tweets were unconditional support for Israel, which had nothing to do with my office at the supporters trust. It was generally about charity, but they just didn't like me because I was, I was a Zionist Villa fan.
And they told you that that was the reason they were taking you off the position?
No. I quit because I wasn't quite getting the support I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really sad because I grew up in a Birmingham where I thought that being a Brummie was the number one identity. And it's not. They have split the working class
Yes.
with this new identity politics. It's sad, it's dangerous, and God willing, it will finish soon because Britain is not made up of that culture.
And it doesn't help anyone. That's the thing. It's like
That's right.
they make you feel like a victim. It's like a victim mentality where you always feel like you're being a victim. You have no, and there's no way for you to succeed. So why even try? It's just a very bad loop that they put people in. Let me ask you, coming to Israel now. So
Yeah.
you have your own podcast. You're on TV, Talk TV, and all these other platforms that you have. You're all over the place. And I saw you on Talk TV. I think it was talking about the hostage deal when it was signed, and you had on your podcast some things about it. So give us your general, from in UK looking into where we are, what you think. Like, what do you think looking at Israel? Are we going crazy that we're releasing all these terrorists for the hostages? Does it show that we're a moral high ground? But how do you see it?
First glance, and I think there was a general consensus that it was a deeply harmful and grievous deal for the Jewish people and Israelis to swallow. We all know the two names, Gilad Shalit and Yahya Sinwar.
Yes.
We know that the last hostage deal gave birth to October the 7th. It's in our psyche. And we've seen victims of the terror attacks start coming out on Israeli media and saying, yeah, that murderer is coming out of prison for killing my daughter.
Yes.
This time, there is a resolve for that not to happen again. Tragically, it will do in, at bus stops in Tel Aviv, it will happen.
Yes.
And, it breaks my heart to see it all the time. It's like, they're not my family, but they feel like my family, as a Jewish person in the UK. But this time there is a resolve, I think, to take the high ground. Yeah, we'll have Emily Damari out. We'll have Doran Steinbrecher out. Thank God, we'll have Leary. And, God willing, all the others will come out. And please God, the little gingerhead children will come out with their parents as well. Who knows where they are? Who knows? The Bibas family, they will come out and, Oded Lifshitz, who's 84, God
There's
willing,
an
they'll come out.
88-year-old Mansour, Shlomo Mansour, I think his name is.
Right.
We have not seen any proof that he's alive since
No.
October 7th. So it's very
Yeah, it's
sad.
grievous.
Yeah.
But this time, Israel's outstretched arm is strong. We've seen it with Nasrallah. We've seen this with Haniyeh. And though I don't think we were looking specifically for him, we found Yahya Sinwar on the toilet on the first floor, didn't we? Throwing a stick around. So that's the end of him, and that's right. I think we should call it the Israel-Gaza War, not the Israel-Hamas War.
Mm-hmm.
because we've seen the videos of stupid old men with walking sticks walking through the broken fence. We've seen the wicked picture of Nama Levy with her blood-soaked bottom end. I don't know how to say that. Sorry. And her legs battered and her blooded face taken away by a Mohammed geezer who was murdered, good, killed, good, out. And, no one actually said anything beyond Allahu Akbar, did they? No one said, stop.
Right.
She's a girl. Stop. We're just savages. So to call it the Israel-Hamas War is one thing, but this was a war between civility and savagery.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to repeat that here.
Yes, and Johnny, I would just want to add that Naama Levy was just released a few days ago,
Thank
and
God.
thank God she's doing good. She's at the hospital right next to me where I am in Beilinson. I'm talking to you from Petah Tikva, so like 4 blocks away.
Lovely.
On Shabbat, we saw the helicopter with the hostages, landing right on the helicopter landing site here, and all our neighbors came out with the clapping hands and
Lovely.
the flags. So I'm so happy. We saw videos of her and the family yesterday have a press conference and said that she's doing so well. She's going to need a lot of, counseling and, medical attention because of the lack of food and all this obvious harmful stuff that we don't even need to get
I tell
into.
you what would be wonderful is seeing, these young girls under the chuppah, at some point in the next few years. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? And
God willing.
We have a similar story here in the sense that in Shepherd's Bush in London, and it's long disappeared into history because, the Jewish world is about progressing and simcha and happiness and prevailing. There was an orphanage for Jewish women who came over from Russia between the 1880s and 1900s. There's 3 blocks of council flats on the top of those buildings now. They were taken down. But the idea was there was a Jewish charity in London which took women off the boat to save them from prostitution. Okay, because these Jewish women coming from Russia don't speak the language. They were vulnerable. And what they did with these women was they put them in a home, they put them in clean clothes, and they arranged a shidduch for them. These poor women, and maybe even some who had fallen into prostitution. And, I've seen this in the Yazidi community as well, where these poor women, and one I was very proud to have interviewed at the Geneva Summit for Human Rights, Farida Khalaf.
Yes.
She was the victim of rape, and their Rabbonim, whatever the Yazidim
religious leaders.
Rabbonim, yeah. They said, look, that was their suffering, but we're now going to find you a shidduch. We're going to find you another Yazidi man. And thank God, Farida Khalaf is now married and lives in Germany with her husband. And, this is the same. It happened here. Generations ago. So God willing, whatever happened to those girls will be, part of something that maybe they can't lock away, but maybe they can also enjoy about a future life. My grandma, we were here on the Holocaust Memorial Day. My grandma was absolutely joyful in her life when she came to Birmingham, despite her parents being murdered. And, she held my hand very strongly because I was the future. So we have this sort of habit of
moving on,
concentrating on the future and putting the past into its place.
It's
so
not
God willing,
always a good
all
thing.
the girls will be too.
Yeah, it's not always a good thing because sometimes it's important to learn from your past mistakes. And like you said with Gilad Shalit, it seems in a lot of ways we haven't learned. And it's like Sinwar wouldn't, not only Sinwar, but the entire upper echelons of Hamas were in Gaza on October 7th, where people pretty much released all on the Shalit deal. So I think Israel must learn. Whether the deal now it's signed, hopefully all these people will be taken out, all these people will be treated and move on with their lives. Obviously, we're very happy, but also lessons must be learned, and I think what you brought us up before is very important. So in that sense, I agree with you 100%. I want to talk to you also about it's a story, but through the story we spoke about before, we could learn a little bit about what's happening and where you are, and also maybe about why it's important for the West in general. The scandal is the grooming gang scandal in the UK. And one of the things you wrote to me was that it's not just the scandal, it's what we can learn from the scandal about the shifting demographics of in all these communities in the UK, where things that through this issue we can learn about what's happening behind the scenes, right?
Absolutely, Ariel. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. It is the biggest race hate crime in British history since the York pogroms of 1190, over 800 years ago. I'm sorry to say that England, despite its modern day tolerance, was the first country to expel the Jews and kill them and burn them in Clifford's Tower. But there's also the consequence of this in northern towns for white boys. Okay? It's because by chance, my family and I were sat with a young couple and their infant boy at a New Year's Eve party in Marrakesh, Morocco. And they were born and bred in Blackburn, these parents, and they were there with their children. And I talked in candid detail about the lack of integration there. And with that, they opened up to me. And it's only because I'm a journalist and I've got my eye on this. My wife was surprised about this. My wife is originally from Morocco and spent her teenage and early 30s years in France. And this is what the Blackburn couple said to me. Our town growing up was wonderful. Now it's 90% Asian in the streets where we grew up. The elderly are the only white people left. The Asian gangs push drugs to the youths. So what did we do? We chose to move out to a nearby village, quotes, to safeguard our boy. But not once did they make a racist comment against the Asians. And what I mean by Asians is Bangladeshi and Pakistani
Yes.
boys, men. They just told it as it was, okay? And that is another segment to this sad story. By ghettoizing places, by making them hostile and unwelcome, they have forced white working class communities out into nearby villages. And we talk about Tommy Robinson because he's the same. He moved his family out to a village near Luton. Luton should be an enormously successful example of an English town. It is the most well-connected town probably in the UK. It has the M11, the M25, and the M1, these major motorway routes going out to the east and to the south and to the north and around London. And it has an international airport as well, where you can fly pretty much anywhere. But it is like a sink estate, okay? There's still, prosperity there in its way, but it could be so much more. And it makes me extremely sad that outside of the London bubble, no one really understands the acute situation facing basically the British people. And I am from Birmingham, and I understand this deeply. And just to put this in a nutshell, this government doesn't understand anything like that and won't help it.
But
They won't help
also
it.
one of the things, Johnny, that we've been talking about is in the news is the call for a investigation, a committee to study what happened. Does there really need to be a committee? It seems that we basically know what happened. Obviously, investigations need to be done about people specifically who allowed it to happen, but the general idea, the general philosophy that allowed people to say, you know, there's a few of the stories that I read. They're just horrible. That people went, girls, to the police station and were told, go away," basically, and then they walked out and got another gang took them. They were raped again. These horrible stories, but the overall overarching ideology is we don't want people to think of Islamic gangs or Islamic people or Pakistanis or whoever it is in a racist way, and so we will not investigate this as a race crime or as a you tell me, but I think that seems to be the overarching issue here.
Yeah, I mean, the left has been taken out in Israel by the terrible events of October the 7th,
Yes.
and it will take a disaster like this to subsume wherever the woke left think in Britain. And it's amazing that after the Ariana Grande concert,
Yes.
that there wasn't a rebellion, but all they did was come out and say, Manchester's diverse, isn't it great? No, it's not great, mate. No, it's not.
Yes.
You know, and then they came up with a busy bee or something and they wrote a poem. And my heart broke 'cause it's going to happen again. And still, people won't understand in this country. We have to have our backs against the wall. You know, they don't understand. And as Jewish people, we understand.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you about Jewish people in the UK. So, ever since October 7th, and I have a few friends that have been going back and forth. Some of them even came to reserves here, and then have gone back. They took a flight on October 8th to Israel from London and other countries, but specifically London. Came, were in reserve for a few months, went back to their jobs in the UK. People that are really, good people. And they've been telling me that on Saturdays, there are certain areas of London and other cities across the UK where you cannot, as a Jewish person, openly walk around as a Jewish person because it's too dangerous.
If you put
Um,
a couple on, or I don't know, wore a mug in David
yeah,
amid all these keffir wearing thugs, then you'd probably get verbally assaulted and maybe even more. London, that West End, is a beautiful place full of Regency buildings, full of great shops, great theatre, lovely restaurants. Monday to Friday, it's a place of work. The weekends, it's a place of leisure. And the thugs are ruining it. And we have the worst possible mayor that there could be because he doesn't stop it, and he could, because he is also the police and crime commissioner. And when you become the mayor of a city or a conurbation, you automatically take that job on. And he's willfully turning a blind eye to it, to the division. And it is wicked, it's terrible, it's not just anti-Semitic, it's anti-Western. People on my talk show phoned in, normal girls, normal women, and phoning saying, I can't go up on the train, they live
yeah.
maybe 20 miles away. I was going out to the theatre and a bit of shopping with my girlfriend. I can't do that because of the people I would encounter on the train. Another one said, I had a hospital appointment at Charing Cross, which is a hospital in town. I can't do that because I'm scared. What kind of society is that? It's filthy. It shouldn't be allowed. It's disgusting. And we can't allow this. It is being allowed. And, we've got muscle outside our shawls. We've had it all my life. And we've got muscle outside our school because this wickedness is being tolerated.
Yeah.
And multiculturalism as a concept has to come to an end and replaced with pluralism, where at least we have to understand that everyone is British, everyone is welcome, everyone should tolerate each other. There is still that tolerance in Britain amongst people, but there's an anger as well.
But
And
isn't there a problem, Johnny, when people are tolerable to people that are intolerable back to you? So
that's right.
everybody's they're so tolerable of all these people that want to kill you. You're like, excuse me. And some of these videos of the cops in London, the protests where people would go and say, okay, we want to put an Israeli flag, let's say, on the store on the path of the protest, and the cops would take down the flags. A few videos are like that, and they ask, why did you take them down? Because we don't want to instigate the protesters. So what happens is, it seems, and it's not only in the UK, it's all over the West.
Yeah.
The law-abiding people need to put their heads down and be scared, not instigate, not get the people who are violent angry. So the violent people are given privilege because everyone's scared of them, and especially if they're in large groups. And so it's just very, very frustrating.
It's frustrating. It's scary. It makes you wonder who could be elected again.
Yeah.
It's making our politics more extreme. We had a consensus in this country. It is being dissolved. And there needs to be some kind of fight back, but it has to be a fight back which says we're proud to be British.
Yes.
Now, Ariel, I am not English in any sense of the word, but I am British. And the difference between being English and being British, English is a kind of sense of the tribes that lived in England and those who are perceived to be English over many, many generations. So I'm thinking of John Terry of Chelsea, Frank Lampard, the Coventry manager, Harry Redknapp, the former West Ham manager. I'm just using football people here. Okay. Now, I'm not English. My family came over in 1939 from Vienna. And on my dad's side, they came over earlier in the 1860s from what is today Russia. But I am British, and I'm British because that is a political entity of Scots, of Welsh, of the Irish, and anyone born in, Birmingham or Bombay or Bangladesh. Okay. And those people who are in Bombay and Bangladesh, they need to understand that coming here is a privilege. It is a tolerant society. It is a place where you can grow and you can build better than the place you came from. And that's got to be understood. And if it's not understood, and that starts with the English people as well, they've got to be proud of who they are. Show the Union Jack. It's a beautiful design. Isn't the Union Jack a beautiful thing? It looks beautiful. The American flag is beautiful. They look wonderful. They're the most lovely flags in the world.
But they're
They look great on the
colonialists,
top of a Mini.
right?
On the top of a Mini, the British flag looks great when Mick Jagger used to go around Carnaby Street in them. They look great. Let's be proud to be British. We did so many great things.
But Johnny,
Great thing.
they're looked upon in scorn. These patriotic flags. They're say the American flag, the British flag, the colonialist, settler colonialist entities. They're a symbol of racism and all that, and it makes people don't, like we said in the beginning, they have no connection to who they are, and they're like leaves and moving by the wind. Um, and lastly, Johnny, we've spoken about a lot of like depressing things throughout this. I want to maybe ask you if you're optimistic, and I'll give you my reason for being a little bit optimistic, is that the election in America, I think, whether you like Donald Trump or not, showed something very optimistic, that sometimes people just hadn't have enough, in the sense that the DEI culture, the whole woke thing with the pronouns and all this kind of stuff, the whole illegal immigration, which I know the UK has a lot of that. Also, the issues of crime and people coming in and not appreciating your laws and your country. People had enough, and they voted for someone. People may call him crass. He was a huge middle finger to the ruling class in a good way. Do you see that? We spoke about the Reform Party, but I think just in general, are you optimistic that the Brits are coming to their senses and going to go for that kind of outlook?
I'm very, very confident, Ariel, because I do think that there is still a silent majority. Douglas Murray said to me, "Why are you silent? Speak up."
Yeah.
And of course, he's absolutely right. And there has to be an understanding that these common sense values are not racist.
Yes.
We have to reject that talk of the left as though it's mainstream. It's crazy, and it's got to stop. And yes, there will be a significantly different election vote whenever Starmer calls it. From what I understand, Labour don't upend their leaders during a term, unlike the Tories, who do it all the time. They're very ruthless, the Tories. And apparently, I'm told by Labour people that even though Starmer's got a lot of rejection, and there's a huge opportunity for disgruntlement because he's got such a huge estate in the Parliament. He's got 411 MPs. So it is literally a broad church, and not all of them agree with the front bench on quite a number of issues. However, it does apparently say that he is going to call an election, and I think he's two-tier Keir's one-term Keir. I don't think he'll win another election. I know it's a long time away, but he's got to temper the way he deals with society, because, as I've said before, it's a loveless mandate, but he has it, and so we've got to try and hope that we can navigate our way through it.
To be honest, Johnny, I'll just say I don't even understand how a person like him became your prime minister. It seems very weird. I mean, I just looked at Donald Trump speaking. Again, you don't have to even like. You could hate him. He's charismatic. He's bold. He brings his vision. You know what he's saying. You look at Keir Starmer. He's giving in the parliament with these grooming gangs, with anything else. He never gives a serious answer. He's never like. One thing that I saw like 2-3 weeks ago, there was a member of his own party that asked him why he doesn't bring back the blasphemy laws, and he didn't even say no, we shouldn't bring them back. It's like So
he got elected for two reasons. Number one, he wasn't a Tory, and number two, he wasn't Jeremy Corbyn. It's just as simple as that. And this is who we've landed with.
Yep.
Is he the same as Corbyn? Does he believe in similar things? I don't think he's quite as extreme. But there is an element of ideology about his leftist stroke sort of Marxist views.
Mm-hmm.
They're not popular in Britain. This is the nation of Churchill. And as for Donald Trump, he won through the card. He has a mandate.
Yes.
And if you don't believe me, look at our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who called him a misogynistic sociopath. That was nice of him. Not a psychopath, a sociopath. So he really tempered his words. But now he said, I had a lunch with him and I found it really warm and Hamisher. I really did. And he let me have more chicken. I mean, these people are our power. Oh,
yeah.
Honestly,
Jonny Gould, it was a pleasure talking to you. I want to just say also that are you planning on coming to Israel in the near future?
Oh, God willing, I want to come to Israel. I just need Wiz to compete with El Al, so I don't have to pay $3,000 to get the family over. So that's the key issue. So I want a bit of Zionism from El Al. Get us people under $2,000. And I want to say one other thing, which is congratulations and mazel tov to the Western Spirit, to Ariel Whitman, who produces a real snapshot of what's going on today. You're a really good broadcaster.
Thank you so much.
And you understand the issues. You let people speak. I am honored to be in the Rolodex of guests, slightly humbled by the people you've had before. And congratulations and thank you.
Well, I don't know how to respond, but thank you so much. Johnny, likewise, you are a legend. I just want to say about the flights, if we already opened it, that as of today, we're speaking on Monday, the 27th of January. There is now a bunch of new airlines that have canceled because of the war, because of the ceasefire. They're coming back. So in the next few weeks, I would be very surprised if prices don't come down. So wait a little bit. And whoever wants to come to Israel, guys, wait a little bit. Refresh your pages. El Al is a good company, but they have been basically the only ones flying here. And when you have a monopoly, prices go up. So wait a little bit, let the competition start, and prices will come down. And you could reach out to me. I'll try to help you out with all this kind of stuff, because I work at a business paper, so we write about it. I've been writing a little bit about this issue. The government has tried to regulate it, but at the end of the day, one company, you're not going to get lower prices. So thank you so much, Jonny Gould. It was a pleasure talking to you. And when you come to Israel, I want to invite you for Shabbat dinner, for coffee, whatever works, and we'll see you then.
How lovely. Thank you very much, Ariel. Am Yisrael Chai.
Thanks for tuning in to the Western Spirit podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. See you next time.